Haruspicy is the art of taking the omens from the liver, the heart, and the gallbladder of the victims that are slaughtered to the gods by whoever is doing so. It starts as something in Mesopotamia and either spreads or is developed at the same time by other ancient civilizations. The Romans had it, the Greeks had it under the name hepatoscopy, and Mesopotamians, Egyptians, everybody makes use of it. Romans used livers to interpret many kinds of omens, particularly having to do with cases of war, politics, who should run for office, who should not run for office, as well as private matters. But how do we know what they did? What process they used when they looked at these livers? The answer is we know, in fact, very little from our written sources, but we're fortunate enough to have a number of archaeological sources, of which two are particularly important. One is the bronze liver of Piacenza. The other is a bronze mirror that was found at Volki that portrays the original Haruspice calcus looking at a liver. And by comparing these two, we can make some assumptions, make some conclusions about how the process of Haruspicy was carried on in practice. We have here a picture of the bronze liver of Piacenza. As you can see, it is divided into different areas. There are 40 of them in all on this side, 2 on the other side, which interestingly enough gives us the number 42, the answer to the question of life, the universe, and everything from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, if you know that book. What is interesting for our purposes, however, is what do the markings on the liver mean? There are 40 of them, as I said, and as you can see here, each has a different name, unfortunately written in Etruscan in them. We think, however, that these are the names of the different gods. What's important to recognize is that some gods appear not just once, but 2, maybe even 3 times. The other thing that's important to recognize is that there are different protuberances built into this liver. What are they? How does this work? Why are they there? These are some of the questions that we have to answer. The next question is, how did this work in practice? And the answer to that is you spend a lot of time in a biology laboratory looking at different livers. Usually it's sheep's livers. The one we have here today is a pig liver, but it comes down to the same thing, and the Romans would have used both sheep and pig's livers. And what we discover is that if you look at the liver closely, just like on the model, there are 3 protrusions. There's this white here in the center, which is where the gallbladder would have been attached. We have a protrusion here that lifts up, that would have been the cauda. And then over here on the other side is the umbilicus, where the umbilical cord would have gone into the liver originally. The next question, of course, is how do we know whether an omen is good or bad? We have, as I've said, 40 houses. We've had, as I've also said, gods whose names repeat themselves. How do we then know which is a good or which is a bad omen? And the answer seems to be that the liver was oriented as the Etruscan cosmos was, so that what was considered the north of the liver was the strongest part, the east was positive, and the west was negative. The question then, of course, is how do we know which is which? The answer to the question of how we know which is east or west, good or bad, is found in our other piece of archaeological evidence, which is the bronze mirror of Volki, where we can see a Haruspice looking down at a liver in his hand. And if you look closely at that picture, you can see that the gallbladder is very, very clearly pointing in one direction. This, when we know that he would have been facing north, gives us a mode to orient our own liver. We can now look at the orientation of the actual liver and try and take some real omens. And what we discover is that just like in the picture of Calchas, we have here the gallbladder, which is pointing towards the south, which means this here would be the north, this would be the east, this would be the west. So the liver would be divided into quadrants. Well, if we start with the positive side, you'd look at the northeast. The north is the strongest, that's where the gods live. And that would be basically this quadrant here. And what you see is, if you look very closely, there's some blue spots. And that might, in fact, mean that it was a good omen that Donald Trump should indeed consider running for president, and he might actually be elected. On the other hand, if you look at the northwest side of the liver, which is here, you'll see that there's a big white piece of scar tissue marking that is clear, much clearer and more evident than what you can see on the northeast. And that would be a clear sign that this is not a good idea, that this is a negative omen, and that he should not be running for president. What would an ancient Roman have done in these circumstances? And the answer is he would have been forced to sacrifice another animal, a cow, a sheep, or a pig, and again until he got a positive omen. Unfortunately for Donald Trump, however, we're entirely out of animal livers.